I was 10 when my mom was taken, and it still haunts me. It was summer, and our annual trip to our family cabin in the remote forests of Montana was something I looked forward to every year. This year was no different, except it was the last time I saw her. My mom was the kind of person who made everything seem brighter, better. She was an ecologist, endlessly fascinated with the natural world. You could tell from her overflowing bookshelf of nature guides, her collection of pressed flowers, and her habit of striking up conversations with strangers about the local flora and fauna. Our cabin trips were her way of immersing herself in her element, and she made sure to include me in every adventure. The cabin itself was a cozy little place, tucked away in a dense forest near a small lake. It had no electricity, but we didn't care. We spent our days hiking, fishing, and exploring, and our nights around a campfire, sharing stories under a blanket of stars. The only unsettling thing about the place was the old, abandoned mineshaft nearby, hidden among the trees. Mom always warned me to stay away from it, calling it dangerous and unstable. It was a bright morning when everything changed. Mom decided to go for a solo hike to gather samples for her research. She promised she'd be back by noon, and I watched her disappear into the trees with her backpack and a smile. Noon came and went, and I wasn't worried at first. She often lost track of time when she was in her element. But as the sun started to dip towards the horizon, a gnawing anxiety settled in my stomach. I ventured out to search for her, following the path she usually took. As the forest grew darker, my fear grew. I was about to turn back when I heard it, a faint, melodic humming. It was beautiful and haunting, and it seemed to be coming from the direction of the old mine shaft. Ignoring my mother's warnings for the first time, I headed towards the sound. The mine shaft loomed before me, its entrance a dark, gaping maw. The humming was louder now, echoing eerily from within. I hesitated, but concern for my mom overpowered my fear. I took a deep breath and stepped inside. The air was cool and damp, and the smell of earth and decay was overpowering. I followed the tunnel deeper, guided by the haunting melody. The walls seemed to close in around me, but I pressed on. Suddenly the humming stopped, replaced by an eerie silence. My flashlight flickered, casting erratic shadows on the walls. Then I saw her, or at least I thought I did, a figure huddled in the darkness. "Mom," I called out, my voice trembling. She turned to me, but something was wrong. Her eyes were vacant, her movements jerky and unnatural. She began to move towards me, her body contorting in ways that defied logic. "Mom?" I repeated, backing away in fear. Her mouth opened, but instead of words, that same haunting melody poured out. It was then that I noticed the other figures emerging from the shadows, their eyes just as empty, their movements just as wrong. They began to hum in unison, the sound filling the tunnel and my mind. Panic surged through me, and I turned and ran, the haunting melody following me all the way out of the mine shaft. I didn't stop until I reached the cabin, slamming the door behind me. I spent the rest of the night huddled in a corner, clutching my knees to my chest, trying to block out the sound that seemed to seep into my very bones. The authorities searched for her for weeks, but they found no trace. The official report labeled her disappearance as a tragic accident, but I knew better. I never told anyone what I saw or heard in that mine shaft, afraid they'd think I was crazy. Years passed, and I moved away, trying to leave the memories behind. But the melody never left me. It haunted my dreams, a constant reminder of what I'd lost. Eventually, I decided I needed closure. So a few days ago, I returned to the cabin. The forest seemed denser, darker than I remembered. The mine shaft was still there, a sinister reminder of that day. I stood at the entrance, heart pounding, listening. There it was, the melody, faint but unmistakable. Gathering my courage, I stepped inside once more. The tunnel seemed to stretch on forever, the melody growing louder with each step. As I reached the place where I'd seen her, my flashlight flickered again. The figures emerged from the darkness, their eyes empty, their mouths open in that haunting song. And then I saw her. My mom, just as she was that day. But she wasn't my mom, not anymore. She was one of them. They all moved towards me, the melody rising to a deafening crescendo. I turned and ran, the sound chasing me out into the daylight. I know now that the forest holds secrets we're not meant to uncover. Whatever took my mom, it wasn't human, and it's still out there waiting. I don't know what I'll do next, but I do know one thing. I'll never forget that melody, and neither will you.